military draft bill. It's about to change everything, guys. And it's going to automatically draft men within the ages of 18 to 26 years old to our military. And the House just passed it, guys. Now, while you can, think that it's only men that are included in this particular conversation, it's already being rumored to extend even further to women as well. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, guys, but I think that we should probably cover a major concern for Americans at the moment, right? Now, the question surrounds a possible draft being endless. I mean, there are so many questions about this draft. I mean, anyway, we're going to try to break this down for you guys as quickly and as understandably as possible. But what does former President Donald Trump think about it? Because many analysts believe that he's going to win in November. What do y'all think? Which, if he does, essentially puts the decision on Donald Trump's table. Now, we also don't need to confirm that, what President Joe Biden thinks about this, as he's been mostly pro-war during this entire term. In fact, Biden has shelled out billions of dollars in taxpayer money in order to keep the Ukraine-Russia war going strong. Wouldn't you agree? And this is, if you asked a lot of his critics, if you look in the comments right now, you'll see that Biden typically has been promoting this Russia-Ukraine war. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments. That is, if you ask, again, many of his critics, a lot of the folks in the comments, but write-ups regarding Donald Trump's decision to support a military draft have surfaced recently, where the Washington Post suggested that he's highly supportive of this idea, guys. They even said that Donald Trump would call for mandatory military service. Now, before you guys freak out and react to that, know that this is not true. In fact, the former president himself has called the Post as ridiculous and said that he never even thought of the idea. Experts claim that Donald Trump wants to maintain the peace and end the wars, which is pretty much the opposite of what the Biden administration has been doing. Now, the problem is that our military members, they keep going down. So why do our military numbers keep going down? This is a big problem, number one, which actually begs the question, is now time for a military draft?
Going out there. Thank you.
How concerning is it this year representing the smallest active duty force since 1940? I mean, have the threats to our nation decreased?
Well, no, I think the global picture, and I've talked about this many times. I've never seen, certainly in my 30 plus years on active duty and the 10 years hence, that more of what I would call a chaotic global picture with Ukraine and Russia, Israel being attacked brutally by Hamas back on October 7th, and of course, China growing in their military capabilities, and not necessarily just in the Asia Pacific region, but around the world. So it's a very challenging time. But nonetheless, as you indicated, we haven't had a draft since 1973. We fell short of our recruiting goals in 2023. My sources tell me for 2024, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and the Space Force it's likely they're going to meet their recruiting goals. The Navy is going to fall short about. It is a national security issue that we are not meeting our recruiting goals, and it's going to have an impact on our military, not only for today, Natasha, but for many years to come.
What does the impact actually look like? Because we hear this a lot, that recruitment is a struggle, that thousands of people short in different arms here. What does it actually mean and look like on the ground?
Well, first and foremost, I want our viewers to understand, and certainly the American people, we still have the absolute best military in the world. We have certainly very capable technology and weapon systems and so forth. But Natasha, what makes our military great and far better than any other military in the world is our men and women, all volunteers. You had up on the.
Well, guys, our military is starting to get smaller and smaller as we see the federal government support multiple conflicts around the world. And this is not a great formula to have, especially as, we're seeing threats right here on American soil. Right now, we have approximately 1.3 million active duty men and women that are serving in our military right now. Besides them, we have about 700,000 in our National Guard and Reserve forces. That's not even 1% of our population. So it's kind of understandable as to why a lot of people are worried about our numbers. But Before we discuss this particular measure here, I do want to say a quick shout out and thank you to Cowboy Rob for the $10 super chat. Cowboy Rob says, "Problem with our government as you can be the problem with our government as you can be a senator, congressman, president, basically the people that run the country with a felony, but you can't work for the government or be in the military." Rather interesting conundrum here, huh, Cowboy Rob? Now, also, by the way, if you haven't already, hit the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel, and get this message out, guys. This is a big deal, and a lot of people are concerned about this. Be sure to share this video and get the word out so that people really understand what they're doing right now. Yeah, so what's going on? Keenan Ripon, we got Carol McCarty, Ray J. Copeland, what's good? What's going on, Fed Up Patriot, Nana's Crochet Corner, awesome. Jackie, okay. So basically, let's kind of discuss this measure that the House of Representatives has just recently passed here, okay? So this is part of the annual NDAA, also known as the National Defense Authorization Act. So this plots out the government's military and national security priorities over the next fiscal year. So ultimately, this year's NDAA will give away almost $900 billion. It's $895.2 billion in military spending. This is jumping up by $9 billion more compared to fiscal year 2024. Now, it really hasn't been called into use in like 50 years, but it's mandatory for all male U.S. citizens to register for the Select Service when they turn 18 years old. Failure to register is classified as a felony. Now, while you may think that, we're in a day and age where war has no place, you'd be surprised to know that our brave men and women are actually fighting right now. I mean, just recently, it was reported that our U.S. Navy is facing off against Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis. The situation has gotten to a point where the clashes are being hailed as the most intense combat that the Navy has seen since World War II. That's a big deal. Now, this is deeply concerning for a lot of us here at home to know that U.S. troops, our men and women, our brothers, sisters, cousins, moms, dads, uncles, best friends, and neighbors could be out there overseas, drafted, fighting in these wars. But it does remind me of this bipartisan bill that was introduced earlier this year in 2024. This came from Representatives Pat Ryan and John James. They're suggesting that we should offer an expedited path to citizenship for illegal immigrants. Before you guys freak out, let me give you some more details on this one. It's called the Courage to Serve Act, and it would allow these illegal immigrants to get permanent and lawful residency within 6 months after they enlist. Now, these people have to be properly vetted because we don't want to endanger Americans here at home by providing military, guns, weapons, explosives to just anybody. And before we go any further into this NDAA, I want to briefly remind you of a possible danger with this idea, right? Just recently, 8 suspected terrorists from Tajikistan were arrested for their apparent links to ISIS. Now, these men were initially vetted and ultimately released into the United States. But this is just one of the bigger concerns when it comes to a bill like this one and what it could possibly do to America. Think of the risk that all 50 states would be subject to, right? Now, getting back to the NDAA and that the House just passed, it's certain that the Senate is not they're not even touching this one, to be honest with you guys. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he criticized the bill and said that it's loaded with, quote, anti-LGBTQ and anti-choice and anti-government and other divisive amendments. We should expect this back and forth between the House and the Senate for at least a few months or so, but it's absolutely sure that this bill will pass. Now, the question as to which provisions will be in the final draft of the bill is kind of still up for debate, still up in the air. But there's also something that's being discussed right now amidst all of this talk. The Selective Service, or the draft, has been mainly for military-aged men. But just recently, guys, the U.S. House Armed Services Committee, they voted to expand the draft to now include women. What do you guys think about that idea? Do you think that women should be drafted into the military against their will? Or should they be? Let me know, guys. I mean, the idea, according to Democratic Representative Chrissy Holohan, is that the old ways discriminated based on gender. In short, they're trying to go by the narrative that men and women should be treated equally, even if it means women going into war. So some are saying, well, women want to be treated equally, so shouldn't they also face the downsides of equality as well as the upside to equality? Equal pay for equal work, equal risk of life to serve in our military. If you're going for equality, it kind of goes both ways. This is what a lot of folks are pushing back, saying, hey, women should not have to be in the military unless they want to be in the military, unless they choose to be in the military. Women should not be forced. So I hear both sides of the argument. I'd love to hear from you guys and see what you think. Should women be forced to be in the military? But yeah, so they're saying that they were encouraged to sign up before, but the idea now is that these people are pushing to require women to sign up. So what do y'all think about that? And do any of you guys actually support the draft? Let me know if y'all support the draft. Let me know if you don't support the draft. Carl Mosher, what's good, man? Thanks so much for the $5 super chat. They can have AOC and her gang. So how many of y'all want to send AOC to war? Let me know, guys. Oh my goodness. But I see a lot of comments about the draft in the comments, guys. Loud and clear. What's going on, Kyle Matthews? Let's see. Watching from the UK. What's good, Ellen Brennan? We got Mesa, Arizona. What's going on, Marsha Davis? Oh man, yeah, I know. It was a big update today, guys. Let's see. Charles Styron says that this has been in the making for a long time. We need to rebuild our forces. I couldn't agree with you more. We do need to rebuild our forces. The real question now is, what's the best way to rebuild our forces? Let's see. Thank you so much, Pippi420, John Kaufman, watching from Missouri. We've got Susan Hopkins in the house. What's going on, West Virginia? Okay, so Egon Christie says, it's definitely possible that there will be a draft. Military enlistment is at an all-time low. It surely is. Let's see what's going on. We got John Lighton in the house. Let's see. Can you imagine delusional trans kids in the military? I appreciate your comment, Greg Lander. That's a good question. Can you imagine delusional trans kids in the military? How does that work? And do men and women bunk together? Like in the military, I don't know how that works. Is there like separate bunking, or do they shower together? Are men and women showering together in the military? I don't know how that works either. And then if you're transgender, which shower room do you go to? I don't know. Troy Price says people don't want to fight for this administration. Hedy Lamar says you ain't taking my kids. And that's another argument. A lot of parents are not on board with this. It's like, look, you're not taking my kids to fight for whatever that the parent may not necessarily support. Can you imagine your kid goes in? You never know what's going to happen. Wayne Firth, if there is a draft, it should be both men and women. It's supposed to be equal, right? Just saying. Okay, appreciate your comment. Stella Burke says, my grandson is not going. FJB. Yeah, getting a lot of emotions here, guys. Melanie Van B says, I only have one child. So that's a good question. If you only have one child, are they going to force your one and only firstborn to go to war? What's going on, Katalia? What is going on? But yeah, that's a good question. Like if you only have one child, would your one child be exempt, or is it going to apply to everyone? That could kill off that. I mean, if your child doesn't make it home, that could end the family legacy, the family name. That could be a huge problem, right? Um, and then it's like, okay, well, what are the exemptions of having, being able to get out of a military draft if, um, there's got to be some exceptions to not having to actually, be drafted into the U.S. military. Um, let's see, both of my children in the Navy, according to Yvette Lantham. Yes, let's see. Have this previous Marine men become president? Muslims, what? Muslims? Man, the comments are coming in so fast. Um, but yeah, this is a big topic, guys, and this is very, very concerning for kids between the age of 18 and 26. This is very concerning for parents, very concerning for grandparents. Um, so. And a lot of kids are not necessarily prepared for this sort of thing, mentally, physically. I mean, look at the health of the average child nowadays. Like, I was reading some statistics recently about health, and the amount of Americans that are overweight and out of shape. It's like there's a lot of there's a lot of people within this 18 to 26 age range of folks that are just they wouldn't even be prepared for any type of military combat, training. Keith Richard, how about gays? Can they be accepted? I remember MASH. Oh, wow. MASH, that old school show from like the 70s. Like, I don't remember it. I remember it coming on, like growing up, but I don't remember the show exactly. Um, Kimberly D. Stewart says, my son isn't going anywhere. So there's a lot of folks in here that clearly both support the military, support the draft, others not necessarily supporting the draft. Um, let's see. Some folks are happy to send the illegals into the military, but then I see some folks who are not happy to have illegals get expedited legal stay in the United States, even being enlisted into the draft. So, or enlisted into the military. So interesting. So let's see. So Jeffrey Knox says, fight for who? NWO? Uh, Marlon McCool says, yes, guys can go in. Yeah, we know guys can go in. Let's see. Audrey Wortman says Killinger wasn't gay, just played one to get Section 8. Yeah. So, so how do you know who's really gay and who's not? Like in terms of like from military status perspective, right? Or is everyone just treated the same, whether you're straight, gay, trans? I don't really know how that works. See, that's the thing. There's a lot of questions that have to be ironed out. And this is likely, based on what Chuck Schumer's saying from the Senate perspective, they're going to have to iron out a lot of details before being able to get that final draft of this bill to be signed off on by the House, the Senate, and the President of the United States. And of course, think about it, those terms could easily change between now and the next 6 months. Let's just say the House and the Senate gets to an agreement under the Biden administration. Biden might be willing to sign off on it, but if Biden ends up losing the presidential election to Donald Trump, and then, depending upon the time that it gets approved by the House and the Senate, it may get rejected or vetoed by President Trump if he ends up coming into office. Now it doesn't meet his requirements. So there could easily be a lot of back and forth here. But anyway, I did a previous video where I discussed that the former President Donald Trump may be the only guy keeping us from another world war. I'm going to leave a link for that in the description down below this video. Make sure to hit that link right now and check that one out for that video. Also, if you haven't already, do hit the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna see you guys on the next one. Take care, guys.